Testing 1, 2, 3. to address the board. So next we will have the approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? All right, it's been moved by Ralph. Okay, everybody. All right. Thank you, Blake. Okay, it's been moved in second. All those in favor of approval of the minutes as printed signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. Okay, motion passes. All right. Now, next on our agenda, I think our whole agenda probably is going to be Ashley. Okay, so you're up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, all. Good afternoon, Madam Chair. And the chair and the committee. We'll get started this year with HR strategic updates, and we really want to highlight each time that we have opportunity to meet with you, really the work that people, culture, and the departments are doing together. So we'll start with illuminating for you a new award that we have here at JPS. It's called the Rose Award. And this Rose Award annually will highlight teams who have exceptional employee engagement and patient experience scores. And so we'll kind of start there.
Stands for Recognition of Survey Excellence. JPS created this inaugural award to celebrate our teams across the network that are excelling and exceeding the network standard of excellence for employee engagement scores and patient experience scores. This is so important because studies show that highly engaged employees have a direct impact on positive patient outcomes. This year across the network, with our first ever Rose Award, we are so excited to announce our 3 winners. The Local Commitment Alternative, sometimes referred to as LCA or Trinity Springs North, led by Kakita Edwards, our Barden Road Specialty Clinic in Arlington, led by Juan Torres, and our P4 Progressive Care Unit, led by Tiffany Miller.
Seeing LCA recognized in this way is truly amazing because it really is the culmination of all of the hard work that this staff have done on a daily basis.
My patients are here involuntarily. They're court committed up to 90 days and some stay even longer. We are alternative to them going to the state hospital in Wichita Falls. And so making sure that their experience is like them going to the Hilton or going to an exclusive resort because they do not want to be here. And giving them that sense of comfort to let them know that we're helping them on their road to recovery has been the greatest reward.
When you do good work, you like to be recognized, and I feel like it was a good feeling for everybody to kind of get that feel. So
we all have areas of opportunity. I look at myself to see how I can improve to be a better leader for them, to be a leader that leads by example. Because I think the highest form of flattery is imitation. And so you will find quite a bit of my team will do things so when even in my absence, it still runs smoothly. And so that's the whole place, and that's the point that you want to be at as a leader. And so it's rewarding for me to see them celebrate it and know that they are appreciated. So.
I was really excited to participate in our inaugural award, the Rose Award, which is really around recognizing our fantastic teams for the quality care and the service that they provide. This is really because of the leadership that we have here with Juan, who is our clinic manager, and this team and the provider team. They have done such an amazing job caring for our patients that our patients' voice has been that they love coming to JPS, specifically at Barden Road here in Arlington.
I think we learned to kind of rely on each other out here a lot more as well. We have all of the resources that you would have at the main hospital, but you do feel kind of like our own little island. So it's always nice to be recognized for like the work that you do. It gives you extra motivation to continue to show up every day and give your best.
Well, like our leadership team stated, like them, I'm very proud of what we've accomplished. Our team works very hard every day, all year long, and it's very rewarding to finally see being recognized for what we do every day.
Good morning, everyone.
When I found out that P4 was selected for the award today, it brought me so much joy. So our nursing team works so hard, our leadership team works so hard to take care of our community and our patients, and it's so important to give them some meaningful recognition so that they know that the work that they're doing makes a difference.
Recognition is everything. It's easy for leaders to be able to say all these things and you see all the great things that happen, but for your team to be able to come together, especially at 8 o'clock in the morning, and see their administrative team and directors and other leaders from all over the organization come specifically here to recognize all of the hard work and dedication they have for their patients and each other is everything. That's what it's all about for me.
It's not just about being a team, but also a very close-knit family. And what we do up here to take care of our patients as well, it just brings joy to come into work because you know that it's not just you that's going to make a difference for the patients here, but the family and team that you're surrounded, every day. It's amazing being on this floor.
What a wonderful opportunity to illuminate some of the phenomenal work. I have to give Dr. Duncan credit. She had this epiphany that we should look at those teams that were both excelling in patient experience and employee experience. It was a brilliant idea, and our units not only are looking forward to the bragging rights every year, but really now, even more energized and galvanized around having exceptional both employee and patient experience.
Well, I thought that was great to see that, to see the teams, because I know that it does matter when you are recognized by your peers and your bosses. So I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I on paper, but to see it on the screen, just excellent. That just really gets you to see the whole picture.
So you have a visual board.
Yes. So we'll pivot now and talk a little bit more about people and culture in action. What you're going to find this year is we're going to try to highlight for you accomplishments. We're also going to kind of create a cadence where you start to see some of the same things over and over that you all have articulated are important to you. So we want to get loud and celebrate some of the accomplishments that the People and Culture Division celebrated in 2023. Of course, we had a phenomenal employee engagement survey, ended in the 88th percentile. We had strong participation. We ask often how we got there, and we think about things like we had a 97% increase in our WOWs on our reward and recognition platform. And WOWs are those recognitions that don't carry any points. It's just one employee to another saying thank you for what you've done. And so that was a big accomplishment. Of course, we were nominated for the Gallup Workplace Excellence Award. We have really reinvested in our language access technology, and so we have done quite a bit around our virtual access technology and refreshing that and getting more units out. And we've also, in 2023, have 100% qualified bilingual staff in our interpretive services. Our volunteers were very active throughout the network last year, volunteering over 5,600 hours on site. We hired 151 nurse residents, and it had an 89% retention rate among those nurse residents, which was phenomenal.
Awesome.
Excellent work on the part of the nursing leadership team. Our physician and APP comp plans were refreshed after many years, and so it was a huge win on the acclaim side. We launched pet insurance, which was a big win. We enhanced our child care benefit support, and really did double down on other lifestyle and mental health and wellness benefits in 2023. Yes.
What's pet insurance?
Pet insurance.
People really see that.
Yes.
Very good.
Pet insurance launched in January, and it allows for a employee to cover their pets so that they can afford vet care and routine care. That is-
Really?
Yes, it is an emerging.
It was
area.
well received by
Yes, big win.
It gets very expensive once you have more than one pet, yes.
Those are
That's why I don't have a pet, huh?
So,
Can I ask you a question before you go farther?
sure.
Was nominated for the Gallup Workplace Excellence Award. Who does that nomination? Who is that? Us nominating ourselves, or is that somebody else?
No, so what Gallup does is they look at all of the people who use the Gallup survey for employee engagement, and you have to have certain measures to even be considered for their award. And so because we scored so high, we had such high participation, and we've seen such significant increase year over year, we were in a very small pool of a very large number of people who use that survey who were nominated to be essentially awarded with their top of the top award. And so it's a pretty high honor. We're proud of. Just to be nominated is a high honor.
So how does the child?
So the child care support we have today essentially creates what we call a concierge service. And really what it's focused on is non-traditional child care, because what we recognize is we have a 24/7 workforce. And so what they do is work with, and you work with a counselor. I actually walked through it because I wanted to understand. You work with a counselor, and they understand what your needs are, what time of day, what your preferences are, and they work to try to partner you with an in-home daycare, a nanny, or a babysitter that will meet your specific need around child care. They do, and they're vetted, they're, background checked and all of that. And then they also have another portal that's sort of like a care.com for more ad hoc services. We have 15% of our workforce is utilizing it, and when you actually break that down by the number of folks we have in the childbearing kind of, it's significant.
Wow.
So the other thing that we're excited about is that Headspace, which is an up-and-coming mental health app that we are using, nominated and recognized us for the Mindfulness Award recipient around our wellness program, that we both incorporated physical wellness and mental wellness, and so we were awarded that in 2023. Again, a high honor that is not awarded to all of the folks who work with that Headspace company. And then last but certainly not least, we were really excited that we had 0 HR findings on our Vizient Joint Commission mock survey as we get ready for survey cycle.
Great.
So next, we'll kind of go into some metrics. You'll find this year that I'm going to share metrics with you about how our workforce is set up here at JPS, but also about how we are moving the needle to retain and engage the best talent. So when we look at our workforce by the numbers, we have about 7,400 team members across the network. That equates to roughly 6,300, right under 6,400 FTEs. We have 5 generations represented in the workforce, with the millennials being our pervasive generation among our team members. The median age or average age of our employees is 41 and a half years old. We have 79% of our employees enroll in some form of our health and wellness benefits. The majority of our workforce is full-time. 86% of our employees are full-time. We have 3.5% of our workforce that identify as veterans. And then the average tenure of our workforce is roughly 6.5 years. We're proud to share that we have a workforce that really does represent our patient population, very diverse tapestry here at JPS, and then very, what I'd say traditional to healthcare is that 7.8 out of 10 employees are women. Any questions about our workforce?
Makes us what, 5th or 6th largest employer in Tarrant County?
We are.
Yeah. Is it 3rd or 5th?
I thought we were 6th. Third. Yeah, when I looked last, I thought.
In Tarrant County, we're the 6th one.
Yeah,
Sixth.
we're 6th when I looked.
Okay.
Yeah.
Impressive.
I love this graphic. This is beautiful. And it's very, very helpful.
Thank you, appreciate it. So we'll kind of move on. So this year you will find that I'll highlight areas of focus for us. And so we really continue to double down on attracting, recruiting, and retaining top talent. And one of my secondary focuses this year is really to look at decreasing voluntary turnover of employees who've been with us for less than a year. We have seen significant sustained reduction in overall turnover as we stabilize the workforce even through those COVID years. But we really now kind of want to drill down and focus on those employees who have been with us less than a year. We know that by and large, in the first year of employment, people are leaving because they're not as connected to the culture as they need to be, or they may not feel a strong enough sense of belonging, or that perhaps their manager experience, this is what the data will tell us, has not been what they expected. And so we know it's not money because they negotiated what they wanted when they came. And so now we are looking at new ways to engage those employees under 1 year. Part of that really starts with us identifying clearly where we're seeing trends quickly. And so we've doubled down on kind of getting our metrics sounder, bolstering our dashboards, really working on stay rounding. And so where we're starting to see trends, proactively getting into those units and asking the right questions. We are also looking at extracting some of those folks and asking questions, inviting them to a breakfast, very much like the JPS CEO breakfast that we do for very new employees to identify where there are opportunities for us to course correct. And then we also are working through what we call stay reporting so that we can then equip our managers to know where hotspots exist, and we can work as an interdisciplinary team to intervene and keep those folks with us when they're at risk. Question?
I'm just listening.
Sure.
And you may be doing this, but it might be helpful for the direct manager for new employees to sit down after, 2-3 months and say what's working, what's not, and have an open-ended question there.
Absolutely. And so we do have a 90-day benchmark, for lack of better words, where a leader is guided through the opportunity to have some of those open-ended questions and kind of ask sort of a start, stop, and continue. What's working? How can I support you? So that is in place, but we really are kind of moving kind of beyond that and building in some more stopgaps. What we're finding is that, leaders are working towards it. HR business partners were working towards this, but we didn't have a coordinated effort. And so we are now building a salient strategy all the way around those new employees and using metrics, quite frankly, smarter so that we can target and start to almost predict where we're going to see deviation. Now, the reality is in healthcare, first year turnover for nurses is about 32 to 33%. That's the national average. And so we're not well above that. We are on par for the rest of the industry, but we want to be above and beyond. And so we'll continue to work and focus on reducing that.
Yeah, to your point, Blake, the expectation is, depending on how many direct reports, and we are looking at span of control, because we do have some areas in which a manager may have a large number of reports, but the expectation is that they're having a one-on-one monthly with them to understand how do they have the resources they need in order to do their job? Do they have someone that they see as what we call a best friend at work? So trying to identify how they are engaging in our culture, and to Ashley's point, being able to troubleshoot those who we start to see some struggle with. So that is the expectation of leaders.
Excellent.
What percentage of our employees that voluntarily leave actually submit to an exit interview?
So that is still an area of opportunity. We send one to every single person that voluntarily resigns, but getting them to, complete that is a struggle. We are not above 20%. What I will say, though, is when we have a notion that something is amiss, we go beyond the standard sending out of the electronic survey and actually have an HRBP reach out to them and do a paper survey so that we're able to gather those data points. Of course, we can't do that in every circumstance because it's just, human resource intensive, but we are working to see how we can improve that. We are not, again, completely off the mark for the industry. Exit surveys tend to languish below 30%. But again, I'm always looking for ways to double down and improve and get better insights.
I think it's an important metric to report, though.
Okay.
Because the deduction that you get when you see that slide is that, well, a whole bunch of our people leave because they don't like their manager.
Right.
Well, 80% of the people that left didn't even tell you why they left.
So true enough. And so what you'll see when we see top reasons is really what many studies have said. So when you look at studies across why people typically leave an organization within a year, it typically has nothing to do with benefits or salary. It really does focus on their work environment. And so we narrowed our focus on these two things, and so that's why I highlighted them for you, because that's where we're really going to work.
Yeah, figuring out a way to get more people to talk about why they left is hard.
It is.
But it's important. I mean,
It is.
you're going to get a lot more data, a lot more information.
I agree. We'll follow back up with that.
Do we where positions are, I would say, enabled to do this, do we do any type of cross-training or offer cross-training? Because I'm looking at the retention, because if I train in this area, I can move up the ladder. And at the same time, do we encourage increased education and
So we do. And so we not only do we have an emerging leader program through Learning and OD that our individual contributors can kind of get into to kind of identify where they want to grow and where they need to get ready, but we also have a robust tuition reimbursement program that gives them opportunities. Nursing has several opportunities. We have several opportunities within the organization where people can articulate, hey, I'd like to grow. We also have pathways to transfer. And so if we identify that someone is not, they're not fitting culturally in a specific unit, we not only have opportunities for them to transfer, we will sometimes even waive some of our transfer requirements if they're a good employee and work to get them somewhere where they really could be anchored and happier. So
How do they initiate that request?
So they would generally reach out to HR, their HR business partner, and then we would partner with our talent acquisition department to identify where opportunities exist and where they are currently positioned and what skill sets and opportunities they'd be right for. If it's something they want to happen immediately, we look for a real-time transfer. If they're looking to grow, we connect them with both talent acquisition and Learning and OD to see, have you completed your Aspire coursework? Because that's really an emerging leader kind of program that helps them to identify their superpowers and that kind of thing. And then if we're talking about just purely education, they want to go back to school and get something else, we connect them with another member of our L&OD team that really can help them navigate tuition reimbursement and some of those clinical specific programs, like nursing has some programs that will also supplement their educational goals.
Do you have any just general feel for how successful these transfers are when you have somebody who's not happy, then they transfer? Does the transfer work?
So I do not have hard data on that, but I would say oftentimes once we align the fit culturally in terms of getting them with the right team, they are great. It is.
Seen it.
Absolutely. Sure.
But yeah, I mean, you could see someone that's not doing well in an area and have them transfer somewhere and then go round in that area. It's like you don't even recognize the person. So, yeah.
I agree. So the other thing that we want to call out is when you all ask us a question, we want to make sure we come back and close the loop with you. And so at our last HR committee, we had a question around nurse residency program. And so we wanted to share our overview with you on our nurse residency program. The question that was asked is, what is our retention for nurse residency? I wanted to start by just sharing that we have an accredited program by America's Nurse Credentialing Center. Our program is a 12-month program designed to support new nurse graduates. Our application and interview process is very competitive, and we are one of the preeminent programs here in the Dallas-Fort Worth market. Our nurse residents are hired into tracks of specialty like med-surg, behavioral health, ER, and critical care. They are full-time JPS employees, and it is a phenomenal pipeline to nursing. What I shared earlier, just at a high level, is that we have had really great success with retaining our nurse residency nurses into full-time, and in fact, our retention has been at 89% or above historically. So very high success, very lauded program, very competitive, and well above the national average for retention as it relates to new nurses. So our nurse residency program really does work to get new nurses kind of anchored and ready to roll and kind of get their sea legs under them so that they can go off and be kind of toddler nurses, not quite, they won't be babies anymore. Now we'll have Jill come up and share with us about our AIP goals.
Thank you.
All right, we are in FY24 and we are talking about FY24 goals. I know we brought it back to this committee specifically because of a question related to the stretch on the readmission program. And so I'm going to quickly kind of go through the slides here because they are repetitive from what we presented previously. These are our champions for our goals. The first goal here is the 30-day readmission goal. This was the question that we had related to the stretch. On this slide, I did add what our 23 scores were month by month to see where we came to the 23 average of 11.7. When we presented this goal, we presented initially 11.5% to be the stretch, which is in red. We are expanding that a little bit, making it a little bit more challenging to achieve, and so we have updated that metric to 11.3%. These are the same goals we had previously, depression response. We've already heard some great work around that related to decrease in depression remission. Patient experience, this is an overall bundle as well, and those scores are the same that we presented previously. Ashley just presented employee engagement. Again, we're in the 88th percentile rank nationally, so this will be definitely something we're working hard to achieve this year. Break-even operating margin, again, this is the adjusted break-even operating margin as the trigger. And then finally, the last slide is really the summary of all the goals. And again, 30-day readmission updated to the green, which is 11.3% a stretch.
Can we ask questions?
Of course.
Okay. So the break-even operating margin, and I mentioned this at the last meeting, I want to remove any reference to property taxes from that number. I want to look at what is our operating margin. We set a baseline, probably what it was at the end of the last fiscal year. We're by the time the board votes on this, we're halfway through the year, so there's not a lot of time for employees to really affect this, but this will get it sort of into our pipeline, so for future years, we can adjust and continually, this will need continual adjustment and improvement. But I would suggest for the first year, we look at prior year operating margin, which of course will be a loss. And because we're halfway through the year, we could set that as the threshold. If we don't get any worse, we meet that. And then have some small improvement for the target and a little bit more improvement for the stretch. In subsequent years, we probably, and Trent and I have talked about making adjustments for items that we have no control over. But I'd like to see property tax. We've moved property tax below the line. I don't want to bring it back up. I want it to stay down below the line and not have any impact. I don't want what the commissioners do this summer to have any bearing on how this works for our employees.
Blake, let me ask you a question. In terms of reporting, you're okay with the metric being always a negative number relative to the property tax. So then do we measure the qualitative aspect of it based on the size of that negative number from the previous year? Or what's the relative measurement that we achieve using that?
Well, we'll start out with baby steps this first year because we're halfway through the year, but just this first year, and it will probably will always be a negative number. I'm just seeking improvement.
So Blake, that is actually not set up as threshold, target, and stretch. It's just if we...
Oh, that's just the trigger.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
just the
Well, then-
trigger.
okay,
So we don't set, that's not one of the metrics. So that we'd have to look at some way in which we now decide we're going to pay.
Then for a trigger, and it's my goal to make it a metric, of course, but we don't need to do that this year. But for a trigger, it would be what is fiscal year operating margin for the year that just ended, September of 23. That's the trigger. If Rory or somebody thinks there's a known reason that we would automatically fail that trigger, then maybe we should adjust it. I don't want that to be an automatic failure at all. But I'm not sure this should be a trigger. I think it should be more of one of the metrics. I don't know that we need a trigger, but if we have a trigger, it needs to not be something that's...
I think we need a trigger. And I also think that what you're talking about need to be worked out with one of the matrix that you set up under the Finance Committee. We talked about having some tools for committees. And so until I get a better understanding of how that would fit, I would like to see how Finance Committee would work out whatever this is. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I'll tell you my difficulty with it is, and I understand the philosophy behind it, don't necessarily disagree with the philosophy behind it, but it's going to be very slanted because all of the other revenue streams are sometimes of a similarly fickle nature, right? Especially when we start looking at grants. I mean, if we lose, for example, as we reported here a month ago, if we lose a substantial amount of federal funding, then that number, that's going to push it down even further. And how do you, that's not an employee's issue.
Right.
How do we calculate that into the overall metric? Because if we lose, we don't put the property taxes in, now we've said, okay, our goal clearly is to say, we want to make sure the hospital is sustainable using revenues that are not property tax supported. I get that. But then, if I have to then add to that, and I also have to be able to absorb losses that come from Medicare, Medicaid changes and contracts.
The tax dollars, yeah.
Any of those other hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know how we measure that and stay fair.
No.
There's probably more uncertainty in your supplemental than there is even in the property tax.
Oh, I totally agree. It's going to, in future years, again, this is kind of baby step year because we've put the property tax where it belongs, which is below the line. It's supposed to be there. And I don't want to bring it back up above the line. So in future years, we've got to get more sophisticated so that employees are neither harmed nor helped by things beyond which we have no control, by these congressional changes or Austin changes. Those have to be neutralized so that we're rewarding. The trigger should be for the work of our employees to make JPS more profitable or less lossful. It should not be based on things beyond which we have no control.
Well, I also think when you look at that, you have to look at how you set up your budget by departments and divisions. You set those up to have, this is what you actually think you're going to spend, this is your budget and what your actual. That's where that accountability, I believe, stands. That I don't think what you're asking us to do, I'm going to be able to show that anywhere. I can look at the VPs and chief operating officer. They develop a budget. Most of the things that most of them they can control. If you're looking at are there costs and reduction there, that to me is where we would be looking at, are we doing well?
That's a more granular approach.
That's more granular. And that's one of the deals that I think if Finance Committee could set up a You know, they need a scorecard too. And to me, it would be set up where, based on when you develop your budget, this is what I actually think I'm going to spend, this is what you've given me. How well do we meet that?
And our leaders do carry those goals as part of their performance evaluation.
Yeah, down, we push those goals down, and of course, what they part of their budget. Blake, I get a little confused, because when we set our budget, we look at all monies that we expect to receive.
Right.
So if you now, are you asking that we set our budget without taking into account our property tax, our ad valorem?
Yeah, I'm
Because
wanting to
that would
remove-
be the only way that you could really start to kind of look at a trigger outside of your ad valorem, because when we sit down to set up our budget for the district, and we need every dollar of that, then we take into account all the streams of revenue that we are expecting to receive, and then we base that budget on it. So it's a little confusing to kind of back it off after we've already set the budget. Do you know what I'm saying?
In here. I'm taking it from a different approach, right? It takes a lot to improve quality. We've been doing that for 10 plus years to get where we are. And that improved our financial today. But if we look at financial, we will kill quality over time very shortly. It will take us another 10 years to build it back up. That's one way of looking at it. And I agree with where you're coming from.
I know.
But from a patient perspective, treating patient, right, from a provider perspective, they don't know if the patient have insurance or not insurance. And I think you're very clear about tax. I think tax, all of our healthcare system is based on tax. I don't care if you have commercial insurance, it's still based on tax. Because if the government won't let them deduct those, you won't have insurance. So Medicare is tax funded, Medicaid is tax funded. We pay for the uninsured, these taxes, and the employer paid through their tax. But that was volunteer. It's not really volunteer. If there's no deduction, there's no insurance, health insurance either. So for me, I look at all that stuff. I said, we have to look at from how do we treat patients.
Yeah.
Am I wrong on that?
No,
one?
I think
that's you're
a
right.
legitimate concern, especially to the extent that we begin equating cost ratio to revenues without considering taxes, because now, technically speaking, if I'm measured on that, I'm going to spend more time on those that have got a payer source.
You got civil right violation if you go down that path.
Than I do
Right.
that don't. That's clearly,
Right.
can't go there. I mean, under any circumstance. The other thing that bothers me is the flip side of this, if you're looking at all the metrics, if we bump the commercial pay percentage of our overall revenue stream by 1 or 2 points, that's a more positive way of achieving the same goal.
Absolutely, that's my goal.
Yeah, which I'm all for that. I think it's difficult for me to isolate the property tax as the only variable that we remove when we look at this metric, because there's so many other variables that have as much, if not more, impact on that equation. With the overall equation is efficiency, right? I mean, that's the overall
There are, and absolutely, there are, but we're the Tarrant County Hospital District, and so I look at the property tax as the special tax that gets extra attention, and mathematically, all I'm doing, this number is the same, I'm just pulling out the tax. If Rory's doing the math on this, he pulls out the tax, we got to say, well, what's the number that's left? And now that is our trigger. It's going to be negative 400 million or whatever. But we've removed the word property tax from this,
Well,
and it stays below the
disagree.
line.
I disagree. we're a hospital district, and part of that mandate is that we do get property taxes. So I find it hard to sit here and say, oh, because we get property tax, we're going to take that out. We were created as a hospital district. That meant we got some property taxes as a part of it. And property taxes is one of those, as with those others that we get. I don't think you can pull that out and say, oh, we're not going to do that, because we have to have that to increase and do what we actually do.
No, I think it's the opposite way. I'll be honest with you. There are things that we're mandated to take care of, including jail care, a lot of the pass-throughs that come through. What else? Staff needs to, and we're actually working on this, building that income statement for just the ad valorem taxes and what we're mandated to now take care of for the county as to how it's been set up as the hospital district being overseen by the county. And we have to pay those bills. I mean, today we just saw in Finance Committee in which was $21 million that came through on jail and public health costs. So we've got to be able to pay that.
They just tell us that's the number to put in your budget. We have zero input on that number. We're just told to put it in our
bond
budget.
is secured against, every month we pull out of those taxes that we receive, we pull out the payment for that bond. That's the first thing that comes off from an accounting, and we pay that off. So if you start to look at what expenses against that ad valorem tax, you will start to see that we're pretty much using a lot of that and have to now generate some net patient revenue up here in order to cover some of those costs that we're now being asked to do. So I don't see it that I'm up here taking care, above the line taking care, and then I've got to pull from here in order to pay it. If I just look at what I'm required to pay to do and use just those monies, we're having to go into other sources in order to pay that.
I looked at hospital finance for a long time, in the perfect world, we love to go down that path. We can't, because sometimes you do more and the insurance will reimburse you less. Because the other side of it, the Baylor side, the THR side, they're going to block to protect their hospital base, and they're going to refer their patient, and they're going to route other patients to us that they don't want, and we're not going to get the same contract, because when they look at the non-compliance patient will go, more likely go here. It's going to be harder for us to improve on the quality side of that side of it, to earn certain things that they put on the requirements, so we can do a lot more for a lot less. And it continues to erode our reimbursement system also as well. So if you look at the increase on that side of it, we can. It's the nature of contracting from the insurance company, health insurance company. So unless you have a different formula for it, I just can't see we go down that path and hold them accountable when it's up in the air. Sometimes you have to cancel the contract.
I'm happy to look at different variables in the equation through finance. To your point, I'm happy to do that. I just want to make sure that we've done it in a way that is equally reflective of the goal, and that is to make our system more efficient and less reliant on property taxes. I would rather spend that same effort creating new revenue streams rather than trying to isolate and focus on differentiating all of these thousands of different revenue variables that are going to affect that number.
Yeah, and I am actively looking for revenue streams, but this is the trigger. I don't know that we should have a trigger, but we have a trigger. And I want the trigger to not reflect the property tax. It will be the exact same number. We're not talking about a math difference. We're talking about a semantics difference. And if you look at our income statement, it's now done correctly. Our operating margin is there. It's already there. There's no adjustment needed. And so to the extent that we feel we need a trigger, and I love Dorothy's idea, I think the granular is really the way to go for the metrics. But if to the extent we need a trigger,
so
by removing property tax.
Advocate, well, let's remove the trigger.
Yeah, I don't think.
But that also can get into some,
Other things.
you know, if we
I
don't
understand.
somehow make the amount in order to pay off the AIP, I mean, it's.
We don't have any other financial metrics this year except a trigger.
Yeah.
Right.
But by removing property tax, it eliminates the concern over what happens in September because it's not part of the formula. We're looking at that operating margin that we're presenting as our financial statements. There's a reason why our financial statements put property tax at the bottom and every other hospital district in Texas does the same. It is treated differently than other sources of revenue. It is not treated the same as supplemental. There's a reason why that the accounting rules work that way.
Yep.
So we're adjusting, we're going backwards to add property tax in, and I'm just, it has no, whether we do it this way or the way I'm suggesting, in no case will it ever make a difference if we do the math properly in whether we pay a bonus or not.
Okay.
I'm confused.
You can make the number be negative, the staff won't see it.
And the country from a standpoint, control and all that stuff. So we've been very, very good steward of that, of how we spend the money. So why are we ripping it off and risk of blowing the whole thing up? Because if we're not sure, stick with what we know, because the message behind the scene can be devastating. You start having people leaving the organization, and it's going to be very costly to recruit those. I mean, our number is barely above average. We can't afford to go
Definitely won't get a
backward.
CFO in here.
You can't.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand the need to show that we are good steward of what the money we spend. We shouldn't be afraid of, because we are a hospital district, by law, it is designed to take taxpayer to fund for those people that can't afford to pay for their health care in a way that the state mandate us to do and the county mandate us to do. So why are we shying away from that? That's the part I don't understand.
I come back to, I think, Blake, that we hear your concerns. We will start doing some things at finance to set up the scorecards. If you're saying just take off the AIP trigger, I'm just having problem understanding that somehow you're saying, okay, take it off, and then we come back and, all the bottom fall out, and then we're going to pay our AIP? That's what you do when you take off the triggers. It says, well, whatever, if this is it, this is what you got. And so now we're saying, well, we don't have to worry about having any measurement there. That's what I'm missing here.
Well, I'm not recommending we remove the trigger this year because we have no other financial metrics in the whole AIP. And my recommendation is not in any scenario impact in a year whether the AIP is paid or not. It's looking at a different part of the same formula. It's just a little more upstream on the financial statement. The answer will be the same. Are we measuring it here or here? And so if we do the math right, it will always be the same number. It won't affect the outcome. It's just how the image is.
So Blake, is it either or can we report out both?
I mean, it's like the person with two watches. You might have, it shouldn't be different times.
Like you said, it doesn't really change. I mean, it's
It doesn't-
just the
it's-
number, one looks negative and one doesn't.
It's removing, and this is not a new concept. It goes back, with my comments for a year. It removes property tax
It's going to happen.
from the discussion.
But some number is going to be negative, and why are you rewarding for this
I say it
negative?
looks counterintuitive to have a negative number and then you pay out on a negative number.
Yeah, I see that as.
But that's reality.
But my challenge is this, that this is probably an appropriate way of looking at it.
Yeah.
We're in the HR department, right? And Asian, I can say this, Asian only have 3% of population here, patient population, so it's not for Asian. We are a healthcare institution to care for people. So why are we looking at the minority section? Less important, the invisible, because that's the money taking care of them. Why are we looking at the invisible? You do the work, but you don't get credit for. And anybody answer that for me, then I'll listen.
At the end of the day, did we hit it or not is the question that's asked.
Right.
It's not, there's not a number that gets put out there. It's just a yes or no.
Well, I would be happy to take up the challenge.
Thank you.
On finance to identify more meaningful financial metrics that can quantitatively and qualitatively be introduced into this. I'm not interested in something that is just, this is about optics and semantics.
Right.
I'm not interested in doing that. If I want to move the dial, I want to move the dial, but I want to do it meaningfully.
Right.
And I want to do it in a way that is not just focused on whether or not we're trying to show, the property tax and identify the property tax. There's too many other variables in the equation, but I will do what you asked.
Okay.
And
And I think that we can look at
try to
that
find some of
next
those
year.
metrics.
I think that will give you an opportunity to have to be able to evaluate it, look at it, and then when we are looking at our matrix and stuff for the next fiscal year, we'll be better able to add something, have some information. I can't say we're going to add anything. But for this year, I think what we have is what we should keep.
Well, it's 6 months into the year. I'm not going to make a big issue out of this, but it's good to have the discussion.
Okay, all right, okay.
I agree with that.
I agree, okay. Is there any more discussion on it? Because if there are not, then I'm looking for a motion to approve the annual incentive plan as that they have presented to us today.
And are we approving the plan or the metrics?
The goals.
Move approval.
Okay. Second. All right. Since there's no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed by nay. And I'm in the ayes over here. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you, Jill. Okay. Now we're going to, what am I going to now? The plan now, the AIP plan. Okay. Go ahead.
We're going to shift now from the goals to the actual plan document itself. You all have the actual plan document red lines available to you, I believe, in your red folders. And so this is a kind of refresher. We started this conversation back, I believe, in December, and so want to refresh kind of, as we remember, the AIP plan is really defined as that discretionary incentive system for executives and eligible employees to reward their achievement. So we think of the goals as kind of the grades, and we think of the AIP plan kind of is like the way in which we aggregate those grades and get to a report card, for lack of better words. And so when we think about why we initially have the AIP plan and what we intend for it to do, we want to motivate employees to focus on short-term objectives, of course, rewards executives' contribution to the company's success. It's really a strong attraction and retention vehicle for high-performing top talent. And of course, it provides an annual bonus payment for employees at JPS. And then as we look at kind of what we've done to enhance this AIP document or AIP plan, we really looked at kind of fleshing out those comprehensive plan definitions in Section 2. We added some clarity there from the old plan. We gave a bit more meat, for lack of better words, around the determination and amount of awards, which you'll find in Section 4.02. We detailed the eligibility criteria, laid that out so there's both clarity for the board but also participants. And then we provided updates to the target award levels and bonus table. And we will take under closed kind of additional information about those compensation levels. Any questions?
Is there this version to prior year?
No, because it was
There's an overhaul.
Yeah.
The logistics are pretty much the same, but the other original plan sort of lacks some of the details that we mapped out in this document. So the red line that you have is just with respect to the one that was on the portal, any feedback that we got after the time that it was published on the portal.
There's that
which
red line?
Yes, it's in your folder. It's just the, just the effective date and then one tweak to the table on the back. And so we'll cover.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Sorry. So we just kind of covered the highlights.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we'll wait to take the vote on that until after our closed session.
All right, that'll be fine, okay? So, and the next will be the approval of the Tarrant County Hospital District Policy and Plan. C?
Yes, so you have before you the provider quality incentive policy and procedure.
I read that.
And you have the red line version, but in substantive part, what we've essentially done here is separated the procedure out from the policy. And then there is one call out that we have incorporated what we're calling a citizenship requirement in section 2.2 on page 39. And really what that requirement does is enumerate for the provider the engagement and behavioral standards that they'll have to undertake each year in order to be eligible for the provider quality incentive.
Okay. Did anyone have any questions on that? Because I thought the policy outlined very good about the requirements and the criteria that they had to meet. And I think that, for me, this was the first time I had really read that policy or looked at it more closely. And so I thought it was a good plan, okay? Did anybody else have any questions on it? Okay.
A motion on approval.
Yeah, I need them. If no one had any questions on it, then I'll entertain a motion for approval of the provider plan.
So moved.
Okay?
Second.
All right. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed by nay. Okay? Motion passes unanimous. Okay? Then that's all we have in open session, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then let's go ahead and close the open session, and as soon as we can get a few minutes, we'll go right into close, okay?
What?
Approval of the policy, the plan. B, approval of the 2014 AIP plan. If there are no questions or any other discussion, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Okay. All right, it's been motion and second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed by nay. Motion passes unanimous. There being no further business, we are adjourned.